Most of you aren't suffering from burnout. You're actually suffering from starvation. See, your soul is starving because you're feeding a massive 100% skill set into a job that only requires 10% of your humanity. In other words, you've become too big for the box that they put you in. And now the walls are starting to scrape. Today, we're not talking about how to survive your 9 to 5. We're going to talk about how to use it as an unwitting venture capitalist for your empire. So stop trying to fit into the cage. Start making the cage pay for the key. Welcome back to Jay's Corner. Of course, I'm Coach Jay Hester, Master Life Coach and author of Think Better to Be Better. And man, I'm here to tell you that your paycheck is a tool, not a tether. Now, before we dive into today's masterclass, we have to celebrate. I definitely want to thank everyone who voted for me. We currently got as high as number 11 in the top 15 of the Professional Impact Entrepreneurship Competition. And this is all because of you all. So even though we didn't get that number one spot, we stopped at number 11, man. I want to thank you guys for continuing to push me and continue to support me as I was trying to get to that number one spot. And so for every vote, for every share, man, for every text message, I truly want to tell you that I thank you from the bottom of my heart. As always, we aren't just trying to do a podcast, man. We're really trying to incite the mindset and really spread some things in the world, man, that's going to be here long after we're done. And so I want to thank you for that. And by the way, if you haven't grabbed the book yet, as I told you guys, I continue to tease this, but I am working on it. I've just been busy here. But if you haven't grabbed your book yet, Think Better to Be Better is available now. So you either can reach out to me on all social media platforms. I love providing my followers and those who support me with a signed copy, or you can jump on Amazon and get your copy there. Pretty much it's the blueprint of everything that we discuss here. It pretty much lays that foundation of what mental wellness looks like and kind of give you a variation of learning about yourself and then a little bit about relationship and how do we work in those second and third communities. Okay. So again, thank you guys for the great support that you guys have given me. I definitely appreciate it. All right. Grab your pen, grab your notebook, or whatever you use to write down some notes. Or if you're driving, don't grab anything but the steering wheel. Just turn the volume up. Let's get to the roots of this problem. Today's topic is called Outgrowing Your Cage, surviving the space between what you do and who you are. Now, I'll be dropping disclaimers all through this because I want to make sure that the target audience and the points that I'm trying to make is captured in good taste, right? We talked about how sometimes we can get lost in that 9 to 5, and really it's like a cage, right? So we're going to break that down and kind of identify, is there a real cage, man, and what is the approach, right? So I don't want anybody inboxing me telling I'm telling them to go quit their 9 to 5 or what have you. But what I am here to tell you is that a lot of times we get boggled down to define by our jobs. And so let's explore that. As always, from my Grow from Your Roots life coaching company, I like kind of using the analogy of things growing, starting with the roots, then the trunk, and then the offspring for as the leaves. And so let's jump into this, man, and hopefully we can make some sense with that. But let's start with the roots, the psychology of what I like to call the shrunken soul. The most dangerous thing you can have is a good job with a steady paycheck. Why? Because a bad job makes you leave, right? No one stays around for a bad job if they don't have to. They have a motivation to leave. Whereas a good job makes you stay until you forget who you were supposed to become. We stay in these cages because our brains prioritize safety over destiny. We cherish safety, the convenience of knowing that that paycheck is there. Now, let me say out the gate, I'm not knocking jobs. Your boy has a 9 to 5 themselves. We're going to talk about jobs, but this isn't anything that you can lose yourself or just get to the point where you feel constricted like a cage, whether that's a relationship, whether that's just in your life. Hopefully by the end of this podcast, what I'm trying to show you guys is that you have more within inside of you. And there are things that in our life, whether it's taught or untaught, that cause us to bail out on that. And what that brings up is a lot of raw, bad emotion that we've kind of assigned to other things. So the good job makes you stay until you forget who you're supposed to become. And like I said again, we stay in these cages because our brains prioritize safety over destiny. We know we're going to have that check. That's the right amount of money. It's going to pay the bills. It's going to give me the lifestyle I want to live. So I'm kind of comfortable. We build based on our comfort. But here's the truth about that. Comfort is the great graveyard of greatness. You aren't frustrated because you're failing. You're frustrated because you're overqualified for your own life. Now, if you feel like your skin is crawling at your desk, it's because your soul is trying to shed a skin that no longer fits. So what I want to do, I want to diagnose the symptoms. How do you know if you're in a cage? Because I know some people out there may be saying, yes, there are jobs that you can get where, your calling or your purpose in life matches up with, and that's perfectly fine. The truth of the matter is that's not everybody's reality. And we'll talk about some of those reasonings as we get a little bit further into this podcast. So again, this is not necessarily tearing down a 9 to 5 or those who are fortunate to where they just so happen to work in a field that operates within their calling or their higher self or their highest level of emotional intelligence. This is for those who have those 9 to 5s, but they can feel within themselves. And if you've ever experienced some of these things I'm about to say, then this podcast is for you. So how do you know that you're in a cage, right? Well, the first one I'm going to talk about is called the Sunday Scaries. And we've all been here, man. At some point in time, we talk about it. I know a lot of Sundays I've had this conversation with my frat brothers, but just think about this. Picture this. It's about PM on Sunday. Your chest tightens up, right? You aren't mourning the weekend. You're dreading the shrink. You're dreading to have to fold yourself back up into a box on Monday morning, right? Matter of fact, that's why we have the analogy we live for the weekend, because we know that we have to get back in that box and just go do the same mundane things on that Monday morning. So I call it the Sunday Scaries, right? We really enjoy Saturday. We get up, church, if you go to church, brunches, that's your thing. But round about that 4 o'clock on Sunday, you get there. Here we go again. Got to lay your clothes out and whatnot. So it's almost like you have to turn something, a part of yourself off to turn another part of yourself on. So if you ever felt the Sunday Scaries, you're probably in a cage. The next one I want to talk about is what I call the competence punishment. Now, this is one that I've experienced a lot, and I wonder how many of you have experienced this. This is where you're so good at your job, you do everything right. Several jobs there that's not even within your job duty. Everyone trusts you. You're the subject matter expert. You're so good at your job that your reward is more work. You do the work of 3 people for the salary of 1. And guess what? Management loves it. They're always giving you the kudos. They may throw you a bone here every once in a while. But the reality of it is you're being punished for being competent, not only just in your skill set or your job criteria, but those that blend in to others. The next one I'm going to talk about is called, and this one here I think is very important, it's called the phantom fatigue, right? This is where you sit there in your padded chair or in your air conditioned room all day long, yet you come home completely exhausted. And I'm not talking about even doing anything strenuous. I'm talking about, your regular 9 to 5, brick and mortar, things of that sort. You sit there all day, but you still come home completely exhausted. Ladies and gentlemen, that isn't physical fatigue. That is the exhaustion of playing a character for 8 hours. And for some of us that work, our standard 8 or 5 days a week, again, remember I said you're turning one thing off, you're turning one thing on. And so this may not be a physical fatigue like you doing something like construction work or something like that, but this is really the exhaustion of having to play this character or perform up to this status for 8 hours. So, and I want to tell you about a time, because I think a lot of times we misdiagnose phantom fatigue, right? We kind of justify, well, that just comes with the job. what I had a long day, what I had a rough day, and we go into the things that may happen to that job as if that is just an automatically part of that job. But I remember just sitting down because I'm a writer, right? And so a lot of my creativity, a lot of my expression comes from a very pure place. So anything that disturbs that, I find myself all the way off because that's a big part of me. And so what I was finding, trying to turn myself off and on and off and on, it wasn't working for you, boy. Because when I sat down and tried to do me, whether that's writing or creative, what have you, I felt myself just like being waterboarded, if that makes sense. And so after making the mistake of just assigning it to the job while I'm going through this or just a regular rigmarole, right? I dealt with this person, this customer, what have you. What I had to be very honest with myself was that this was phantom fatigue. This was a feeling that made me feel like I was physically tired, but it was exhaustion. It was exhaustion of having to play that role or play that character we talked about 8 hours, 40 days a week, turning myself on for a few hours on the weekend where I could be myself, where I could do the things that I like doing, and I can fully use the gifts that God gave me, but then I had to turn it back on Monday morning. Because like I said again, I'm trying to give 100% of the skill sets that I have, but the reality of it is my job only needs 10% of my humanity. Show up, do what I said what I could do with the job, get my paycheck, rinse, wash, and recycle, right? And so it's very important that I think that we quit misdiagnosing that phantom fatigue. We just kind of, it comes along with the territory, right? And we take no breaks, right? It just continue to happen back and forward, backward and forward, and back and forward. So at some point in time, we have to stop asking why the cage is so small and start realizing it's only small because we got bigger. And so that friction that we're feeling is a biological imperative that's telling us it's time to move. And that is the discomfort that we're going to talk about a little bit later on. What we've been assigning as just a part of my regular day, just tired, I got to go hit half hour up, that's exhaustion, right? And I don't think that a lot of us realize that in any capacity, I don't care if it's a room, I don't care if it's a car, I don't care if it's clothing, after you outgrow them, we now have to arrive at the question, is this really something I can repurpose? Or have I grown out of this? Is this something that I can reevaluate or reconstruct? Or have I simply grown out of this because in some capacity I've gotten bigger? And I think a lot of times we don't even pay attention to our gifts, our talents that God has given us, to where the more that we grow and the more we mature and we learn ourselves, we can outgrow something such as a job. And like I said, again, a relationship that we maybe have been good at in one season, but because I've matured or I've grown in some capacity, I've outgrown that. And so that friction that we feel, like I said, it's a biological imperative that's trying to tell us. Most people say intuition. You may have heard people call it that way, but it's pretty much telling us it's time to move. Now, before we talking about moving, now again, please don't go tell nobody I told you to get up and leave your job. That's just you not wanting to get up and go to work. But there is a structure and a mindset to it. And so, as always, before we talk about what is, I always want to talk about what isn't. And so, this is what we're going to transition and start talking about the myth of the dream job. Now, again, I said this earlier. If you just coming in joining, there are people out there are jobs out there that align with people's gifts and with their talents. And guess what? It just happened to align. And so they can put more of their authentic self in that, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But to kind of set the stage of what the rest of this information is going to be about, that's not everybody's reality, right? There are some people who lost a job, and guess what? Those bills stacked up, and they had to just make that decision. As I always say, I got to get to it to get through it. And so they took on that job for simple fact that, hey, I know how to do this job. It pays the bills. Bills are stacking up. I need some type of income. The problem with that is that you don't, all the time, life don't take any commercial breaks. So sometimes you don't get to vet that job. That's what I'm trying to get at. You had to do what you had to do for the bills, for the family, things of that sort. But as those bills keep coming in, we get into that rat race. And so we may find ourselves having to take something in one season. But guess what? That wasn't the totality of who we are. So that's what I want to kind of explore the dynamics are. But what I also want to do is lean into those people who also have the dream jobs. Now, I won't even try to pull this up on the screen, but I will have this up on my social media page. This is a response from a gentleman that I met on LinkedIn, and I had put some information out there about tonight's podcast, Outgrowing Your Cage, Surviving the Space Between What You Do and Who You Are. And I wanted to share with you guys, and I'm going to read it verbatim, what this guy's response is, because I do think before we talk about, this is in light of the myth of the dream job. A lot of times in our mind subconscious, we always go to the fact that, we envision what jobs that we are talking about and those that we're not talking about. And be honest, they're usually the ones that we're thinking the lower pay or the ones that, people don't readily do. But I want to even challenge you rather to think outside the box on that. Once I finish reading this post, this comment that a gentleman left up under my advertising, if you will, on LinkedIn. And so again, it was just a flyer about, if you've been on social media, you know how the flyer looks. And so I like doing that because I like getting real time in people's real experiences. And so this is what Sharish A said. He said, "This really hits home." He said, "I worked with a client last year who was a senior manager at a tech company, pulling six figures, but completely miserable. The interesting part wasn't that she wanted to quit, it was that she didn't know what she was moving toward. We used her remaining months there strategically, testing different content angles and building an audience during lunch breaks and evenings. That cage became her laboratory. The part about comfort being a silent killer is spot on. I've noticed that the people who feel the most trapped are often the ones who've optimized their current situation so well that leaving feels financially impossible. They've golden handcuffed themselves, but that friction you mentioned, that's valuable. So I want you guys to think about that on the foundation when I'm talking about this next section called the myth of the dream job. I do not want you to think about it with the mindset that, well, if my job good and I like it in whole 9 yards, well, this doesn't apply to me. As you can see that this gentleman here, even in those jobs that we're well equipped for that align with our gifts and all of that, there still may be something that is lying dormant that's within us that we were supposed to be or to bring out, that the best of the jobs could be limiting. And not to the point, if you notice with her, don't mean that you throw the job away or quit the job, but I do think that you owe it to yourself to explore what that is just within you, because no one should feel like they're in a cage, whether that's physically or mentally. So let's get off into this, the myth of the dream job. Let's attack a lie that society has told you since you were in high school, right? And I think we've all heard this. We've been brainwashed by this romanticized idea that we must find our dream job. As a matter of fact, when they talk to you about what do you want to be in life, what do you want to have a career, we often identify that as our dream job. But as I said earlier, the reality of it is not a lot of us that worked out that way for whatever reason, right? And so we've always talked about that, and that's always been romanticized to us, and that our dream job, that 9 to 5 is supposed to deeply fulfill us spiritually, emotionally, and creatively. Sounds really good, right? Sound like the first person I got in a relationship with, but I digress. But I want you to listen to me. A corporation is not your therapist. It is not your life coach. It is not your source of self-worth. When you expect a corporate entity to fulfill your soul, you're setting yourself up for guaranteed heartbreak. What we're going to do right here, we have to separate three things right now. And this is where a lot of time we all think they go together, even though sometimes our life forces us to put them together. But we have to separate three things right now to understand the remaining of this podcast. There is a such thing called a job. There is a such thing called a career, but the one that often is misconstrued or we leave out altogether and we drop for the sake of the job or the career is a calling. Most people don't deal in that space. A career, a job, and a calling. A job pays the bills. It's purely transactional. That's what I said, for those out there who had to do what they had to do, get on that job, roll up their sleeve, get them bills paying, taking care of themselves and their family. It's transactional, right? You go in, you do that skill set, you get that paycheck, you continue doing it. It's purely transaction. Now, a career is a trajectory within the industry. Gives you a little bit more self-work. You see yourself growing there because there are some things there that you actually you fit for the most part. It pays the bills and offers ego satisfaction because contrary to popular belief, and I always tell people this, you don't just go to work. As much as people say, you do not go to work just for your paycheck. It's a sense of, well, for most people, I won't say for everybody, but I digress. But for the most part, I think you would agree that, yeah, the paycheck is good. The main thing is the main thing, but it's also feeling of being a part of something, being needed, being wanted, being a part of some type of solution in some type of capacity. And we have nothing else, just being a productive member of society. And so, yeah, a career will offer you that. But what about the one that we don't talk about a lot, right? This is the one I want to kind of explore in you. That's the foundation, whether that's that person who got the 9 to 5 and had to just get in where you fit in, or if you were fortunate to get a job that aligns with your gifts and your actual talents. Let's talk about a calling. A calling is the work you cannot not do. In other words, you just find yourself just doing it. You find yourself, that's just who you are. Like with me, for better, for worse, I'm gonna put myself out there. I'm a conversationalist. I like intellectual conversation. I like laughing and joking or what have you. That's just who I am. I like helping people, right? And so your calling is usually going to be associated to the work that you cannot not do. In other words, when you do not do these things, or when you cannot do these things, you're not even yourself. So for me, guess what? Because I know that about myself, it's Jay's Corner. I get to talk to you guys. It's the book that maybe you're writing because you love writing. Maybe it's the nonprofit that you want to start, right? It could be a number of things that you're just passionate about that doesn't necessarily fit or always align with the regular 9 to 5. So stop demanding that your job act like your calling. Let go of the need to be fulfilled by a system that was never designed to fulfill you. Your job is transactional. It's not a bad thing. We got them things called bills. We're glad that we have a job that can help us sustain bills and some of the things that we like. You trade a highly specific set of skills for a direct deposit. That skill set, what that job asks for, they deposit funds in your account on your payday. That's it. In the emotional attachment. When you finally internalize this, and again, that's not saying think negatively, right? This is just a mind shift of emotional intelligence. But when you finally internalize this, the emotional sting of the daily grind vanishes because you keep the main thing the main thing. You understand the priority and the ramifications of what that is, but you also are not afraid to allow yourself to dare and explore what it isn't. When a middle manager gets loud over a meaningless metric, you don't even flinch because you understand the correct position of what that job means in your life, right? You aren't looking for validation in a system anymore because you become bulletproof. I am here to give the skill set that this job hires me for at a high level, and in turn, I continue to get that direct deposit to allow me to live the life of who I am, right? So that's very important to understand. A lot of times we work so much, we lose ourselves in what we do consistently. And because for the most part, a lot of us spend more time at work than we do sometimes with our own families, we lose ourselves and we allow ourselves to become the identity of that employee. And I will humbly say that that's not healthy, right? So we talked about the root of the problem, right? We've talked about some of the misnomers or some of the myths that are out there. Now let's talk about, now that we've identified these roots, and hopefully we're starting to kind of check these roots, right? Which ones need to be pulled up? Which ones do we need to leave anchored? Let's now think about the trunk, because the trunk is what takes what's from the roots to the what type of fruit that we want to bear, right? So let's look at this trunk here. This part I want to call the angel investor protocol, right? So here's the mindset shift that changes everything. This is what I call executing the think better to be better methodology right here. If we don't think it, we don't become it. That's just a firm reality, right? A lot of times, what we do is more comfortable to think about it, but not act on it. So therefore, it never be. So it's easier to blame, right? If I just sit in this chair, think about doing good, think about changing, but I never apply myself, well, I can just sit here and just point my finger to it. But what we want to do, we want to play on the title of my book. We want to be able to think better with an action item after to be better. And so that involves us. So, in other words, we have to decouple our identity from our duty. That is very important. Decouple our identity, who we are, from our duty, what we do. Do not give things your whole self when it comes to your job. They're not sustained for that. As a matter of fact, that may sound harsh, but how often have you heard the term, when you come to work, leave what at the front door, leave what at the house? Leave your personal life at the house, which is so untrue. It's one of those things that sounds good, says good, may have a meaning in there, but it's just not the truth. Who you are is who you are. When I lost my uncle here recently, guess what? There's no leaving it at the house. No, that's who I am. That's a part of who I am. And so we have to make sure that we intentionally, not saying don't do a full day's work, slack off, whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But what we do have to recognize that it is not intentional for us to give our whole self. So many people lose themselves within their careers. They have little to no private life. When they come home, they're in front of the screen, in front of the laptop. They've given their whole self and they've justified it because guess what? That company will pay you enough to make you lose your dreams. Some company will pay you enough to sacrifice your personal life, your family, your friends. And that's why I said we have to think better to be better. But how often do you see in society, sometimes we celebrate that? What they call it, I'm getting to the bag. Ain't nothing important. I'm getting to the bag, right? So we give our whole self to trade off borrowing some things, but when we look up, what type of life did we really build? A life where we just have some experiences and some memories. What we should do is give our jobs the job required version of ourselves. Between that 9 to 5 or whatever that is, whatever that job description is, I'm going to give 100% of that. That is what you hired me for. That's what I get that direct deposit for on my payday. So, of course, I'm going to give you 100% of that. That's what you hired me to do. That's what I said I would bring to the table in the interview. But we have to make sure that we're not misconstruing that. We're giving our whole self, right? So, stop giving 100% of your soul to a company that will replace you in 24 hours if you drop dead. Give them the 100% of the job description you agreed to and save the 100% of who you are for the dream that you're building. Ladies and gentlemen, your job is not your master. Your job is your angel investor. And the reason why a lot of people don't think about this is because some people have worked on a job so long at such a high level and given them their 100% sales, they've lost the insight of who they are. And I'm not even talking about just everybody's not an entrepreneur. So I'm not even talking about that capacity. It could be that relationship that you can work on. It could be getting more sleep. It could be getting more peace of mind. It can be arts and craft. It can be a gift that God has given you that you just bail down on because you don't see any dollars and cents for it. So it could be a number of things that we have justified not giving ourselves 100%, and we're just giving it all to that job. And if you ask me, that's an unbalanced deal. They're going to give me a finite, in which we all can agree most times you're not getting paid the fraction of what you're worth anyway, but they're going to give me a finite amount of money in my bank account, and I'm giving them 100% of my lives. And I've actually been around people that like that, and you could not convince them that they were wrong. Even after work, they're doing the extra. They're already preparing for tomorrow. Even if that's the risk of something simple as family time. Even if that's at the risk of something simple as self-care. Think about it. That's why I say we have to reshape our mind. We got to think better if we want to be better. We're running ourselves into an early grave, and like the analogy that I just used, if something happened to you, and you've heard that before, that's not something here in New on Jay's Corner. If something happened to you, if they laid you off, fired you, whatever, within 24 hours, if you drop dead, Lord forbid, they'll help somebody else in there. If that need is that important, because guess what? The truth of the matter is, while you're sacrificing your life, your relationship, why you sacrificing your own self-care? That company has to go on. With the 100% that you giving them, that company is not going to shut down one day because you got to get your marriage together. You got to get your relationship with your children together. Heck, even if you got to take care of yourself a little bit better, you just need a mental break. So really think about that shift when we're talking about the 100%. No, we want to give 100% in everything that we do, but we want to make sure that we are giving the correct 100% to the things that matter. And all too often, we are leaving ourselves behind, giving ourselves the after effect of the check. We're giving ourselves 100% of the power of the check, but we're giving a job 100% of our life by justifying these other things have little to no value, or just completely justifying that we'll get around to them. Okay, so let's talk about this. When I said an angel investor, I like using a business term because a lot of times, again, when we think about a company, we know the company's business, but we don't look at our lives, ourselves as a business. And if for nothing else, our household is a business. How we pay our bills, how we buy groceries, what we pay for, different things that we want to do within our family members, it should run like a business. So what I'm trying to do is use the analogy and showing you, well, how do you invest within yourself? An angel investor, that's someone that gives because they have bought into the idea of. And so they're willing to make sacrifice and they're willing to invest, whereas other people wouldn't. So that's why it's important to understand that your job is not your master. There is nothing that your job is going to turn down if it makes that job better, but they won't always pay you for it. So how do you transition and position your job while giving 100%? All right, as your angel investor? What I want you to do, I want you to think of yourself as the CEO of a startup. And it could be anything. Like I said, it could be a true entrepreneurial venture. Now don't think I'm talking about, these people out here, I'm going to quit my job and become a rapper. That's not what we talking about here on Jay's Corner. What we're talking about, remember again, your job, your career, and your calling. What we're trying to do is put the calling on the same level that I think we just automatically put the job and or career on. So imagine and think of yourself as a CEO of any startup. I was talking to someone the other day. Hey, I want to start back organizing. Hey, I'm in arts and craft. That's something that brings me joy, that I love doing. I have all the things around me, but I don't have the time anymore. So whatever that startup is, think of yourself as the CEO of that startup. Your calling is the startup. Whether you're doing it to make money, to help people, whether you're doing just for fun, but it's who you are. And that soul sucking day job that you've been given 100% for and they only want 10%, that is just your Series A funding. That is just a component that should help you fund these other things. Okay, my job is going to help me take care of my bills, have a place to stay, afford the quality of life that I have. But definitely don't take off the table those things that you have inside of you should be funded by your job also. So therefore, you're not worrying about a lot of the things that's happening at your job that you can't control, and you're not giving them those gifts in your calling that they cannot put a price on, but you can give it to yourself. And that cubicle we talked about earlier, that we feel cramped in, we feel stuck in, that proverbial cage we talked about that we're outgrowing, envision that as your corporate sponsored office suite. This is where I go to do my job, to do my thing, to get the funds, to bring the funds back so I can make my dreams live. And your salary. What is your salary? That's your seed funding. Now we're gonna talk about that a little bit later. This is, I will tell you, this may sound controversial because to some people may land on screw my job or things like that. And that's not what we're saying. We talk about in the middle. We have to put ourselves and who we are and the things that we enjoy and the things that we love doing, the things we're passionate about. We have to find time to where those things are exploratory and those things thrive just like these companies. Kind of like we keep saying, when you leave these companies for whatever reason, Which company's gonna just shut down because you're not there? You miss a day, right? So we reshaping the mindset. So that's why I said that salary, look at that as your seed funding. And that annoying manager we talked about earlier, a lot of time that drains us, right? That's just a loudmouth consultant who you have to tolerate until the contract is up. A regular person in life. That's a part of life, right? You get on the road, someone blow a horn at you, flip your finger. That's a part of life. I no longer give it that energy. I go in the grocery store, get a strange look because I got locks. I don't even give it that energy, right? Because I'm too building who I am and exploring what it is and what my calling is. I want you to think about something, audience, and I thank you guys for joining in tonight. We've been talking about outgrowing your cage, surviving the space between what you do and who you are. I have a brief exercise for you. If you do it after this podcast, I want you to think about your paycheck differently this Friday, the next time you get paid. When that direct deposit hits, I don't want you to say the company paid me. I want you to say my angel investor just deposited the funds for my empire. I like using a business analogy because the things that I do, literally, that I'll talk about here, is a business. And why do we frown on that? Why do we minimize ourselves? We can name that company we work for and identify it as a brand, as an entity. Why we don't look at ourselves that way? That's a whole nother podcast, though. I'm not going to go there. But it's just something to think about. Why minimize ourselves? So again, this Friday or whenever you get next time you get paid, I don't want you to say the company paid me. I want you to say my angel investor just deposited the funds for my empire. Now, do I have to see the empire right now? No, you don't. There are companies right now making decisions that's going to pay off in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It's a process to everything. And I think that's what discourages a lot of people, or they take it all together, because if they don't see it right now, and that's sad to say, if they don't see it right now, if it's not going to turn a return investment tomorrow, then it's not going to do it. They'll justify themselves why they're not going to do it. Whereas with that job, well, I know when I'm going to get paid. So I have more incentive, right? So we cut our legs out from under us before we even tried to walk. So we don't have to see that empire. Again, think better first, and then eventually we get better. So even if it's just a vision, I talk to so many people. Like when my book was coming out, man, I was going to write a book. What stopped you? What do I need to do to write a book? Start writing. If they don't see the end goal, it'll stay a thought. And so I really want you to practice that. Like I said, whatever terminology you may use, my angel investor just deposits the funds for my empire. How much of that check is going toward the exit strategy? Remember, we just talked about the gentleman who commented on my LinkedIn post. It does not have to always just do with money. And that's a whole nother piece right there. We make everything around money. Yes, money is important. I'm not one of the people go live in a hut and downside. No, look, we all like a quality of life, right? What I am talking about is your mental well-being, being stuck in a cage despite whether they're paying me little or a lot, whether I have the CEO job or whether I clean the floors, but I feel shrunken. I feel small. I feel like I'm in a cage, and I feel like I've been growing and growing, but the cage has remained the same, and I don't know what to do. So do I just do my skill set, or how do I become who I'm growing into being? That is the focus that I want us to continue to focus on. It is not just about the money. It could not even be that you hate your job. It could be a well-paying job. You get along with everybody. They give you all your days off and things of that sort. But we have to start exploring, when we leave that job, what does that job have to do with our mental wellness? That's a responsibility, right? So we have to ask ourselves these real questions. How much of that check is going toward our exit strategy from a mental mindset? Now, if it need be, sometimes we have to leave jobs for our mental well-being. That choice is up to you. You know your situation better than I. But when I'm saying that exit strategy is that mind shift to where I'm just giving 100% over here to when something does happen that I don't like, I'm lost in it, right? I don't know what to do, or it just affected my life. Now I'm bringing it home. Now if someone says to me, I'm snapping, or like I told you, my situation, you just sitting there exhausted. Not that you've done anything physically, but you're emotionally exhausted. So whatever that exit strategy looks like for you, are you willing, and how much of that check is going toward that exit strategy? Are you using your investors' money to buy, look, you can spend your check on whatever you want, but you eventually have to ask yourself the hard question. Are you spending the investors' money to buy designer clothes to impress people while you silently live in a cage that you hate? Think about it. That doesn't make sense. You're trying to impress people. And I'm going to get on my soapbox here for a minute, but really think about it. You're going out to the party, you got the drinks, you pop in a tab, open tab, pay and everything. You impressed everybody. But guess what? That nighttime coming, first thing I think about, you got to go back into that job. Remember I said you turn off and you turn on? You invested into a temporary getaway. So what if someone opened up the door to that cage, say, hey, you can come out for a few minutes, but guess what? You got to go right back into that cage. Some of us have become comfortable with that as a normal, mentally sane way of life, borrowing our own times in our lives. So yeah, some of these questions may be controversial. And hey, I'm not trying to tell you how to spend your money. I'm just talking about if we want to truly be better, we have to think better. This is something that I've had to even do within myself. Are you using the investor's money? Remember, we reshaped that job as an investor, an angel investor. But are we buying the designer clothes trying to impress everybody else, but we're miserable in a cage that we hate? Or are we buying, I don't know, say for instance for me with my podcast, a microphone, LLC in my brand or my vision, my domain name, taking care of my coaching certification, using analogies that I can relate to. Are we willing to step out in the same way that we're going 100% for this person for the exchange of a check and stay in that transaction? Or are we willing to look deep within ourselves and say, is this all I'm supposed to do in life? And if there are some big ideas in us, are we willing, are we bold enough to reshape our mindset and invest within ourselves? And like I said, it could be a entrepreneurial venture to make money. It could be to go help people and help the less fortunate. It could be missionary work, or it could just be something as simple as, like I said earlier, if you like arts and craft, if you like collecting music, whatever brings you that true joy, audience, is what I'm talking about. Whatever that centers you when life happens, because life happens to everybody. Whatever that it is, you have to be bold enough to quit giving it to a place that doesn't, quite frankly, care about it, was built for it. And we have to be comfortable with reshaping our mindset and asking ourselves the tough questions. Are we owning the space of our mental wellness? That is the point that I'm trying to make. Every dollar you spend on a status symbol is another bolt that you're tightening on your own cage. Remember I said Saturday, we look forward to Friday nights and Saturdays, but Sunday around 4 o'clock, we just borrowing. And even the time is not, we're working 40 plus hours. What we get, I would say a day and a half for the most part. If you like me to go to church, check on family, what have you, how much time are you really giving to yourself? And again, y'all, the scary thing about this, we became conditioned to this. So it's not knocking the 9 to 5. We all have bills, but we become conditioned. What are you doing Friday and Saturday? What you doing Saturday? Because guess what? Sunday, we trying to rush and do everything because guess what? Like I said, around 4 o'clock, I guess I go into the house and that's a vicious cycle that we have. Some of that we have to do. But what I want to introduce, the next part, is the branches. What happens when we leave work? 9 to 5, we got to do it. But everything that I'm saying, guess what? Coach Jay Hester got to get up and hit that 9 to 5. Them bills not going to stop, so I can't stop. I ain't at that level yet where I built my empire to take care of them bills. So guess what? Jay got to hit it. But what about those branches that I want to call the 5 to 9 shift? Now, this is what's going to get a lot of people, right? Because as much as there are some people who feel that they're in those cages, what have you, what we do, we let dollars and cents make us okay with dealing with mental sickness. We'll live with it. All right. How do we shift our mind now to the 5 to 9 shift? How do we outgrow the cage without breaking our neck on the way out? Like I said, we're not talking about, hey, we just gonna quit tomorrow and I'm gonna out on faith. I hate when people say that. I'm gonna step out on faith. It don't work like that, right? God also talks about discernment. So don't tell nobody that, right? There are maybe times that you may have to take an analysis and say, you know what, that job is just it's it's unhealthy for me. I read an article on LinkedIn that was talking about, of course, jobs. That's what LinkedIn is about. But it gave the analogy, you all, staying in an unhealthy job environment for the trade-off of a check is just like staying in an unhealthy relationship just for friends' benefits. The sex is good. She looks good. He looks good. We pay for things. Do you see where I'm going when I'm talking about our mental approach, the emotional intelligence or the lack thereof that we're using? It's not necessarily just tied to whether the thing is good or bad. It's about even asking yourself, is it effective anymore? And so there may be times, the same way that we have to take an analysis of our partner, our mate, our boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, and wife. Is this even healthy anymore? Is my mental well-being still paramount? Now, like we said earlier, that's not our job's place. So why are we giving it that? Just for a check. So we have to find our way of reshaping this dynamic to where we know we got to do our 9 to 5, handle our bills and things of that sort. But now how do I shift to the 5 to 9, right? What this includes or involves is us building the door in plain sight. And this is what a lot of us don't do. You do this by mastering what I call the 9 to 5 shift. Now, what does this mean? What you do from 9 to 5 pays your rent. What you do from 5 to 9 builds your legacy. Now, that legacy have to mean something. That legacy has to mean more than the parking space, the trophy at work. You see how we going right back and making that the 100% thing? It even has to be more than just the money. Remember what the article that the post that I read. It has to be separate. Your job, your career. Nothing wrong with them. Nothing wrong with valuing them. But we're trying to put our calling on that same level. So if you've lost that, don't care about that, sorry, this podcast is not for you, right? So we have to put ourselves in a position to where we build the door in plain sight. It's just like when we get up in the morning. For the most part, we know what we're going to do. Shower, brush our teeth, do all the whole thing, I hope. We know what we're going to wear. We know where our keys at. We know we're going to get in the car. We know what route we're going to take. Maybe traffic may take us a different way, but for the most part, we can do that with our eyes closed, right? That door is in plain sight to our job, to that paycheck. Is it that plain when it comes to who you are? What your calling is? Things that make you happy, things that bring you joy, things that brings you a peace of mind, things that when life goes awry, whether it's at the job in your life, that you can center yourself and say, man, this just brings me joy. This is what James Hester is known for. Is it that apparent in your life? Is that door to that thing that apparent in your life? Or like I said earlier, we're trying to escape it. No wrong with going and hanging out. Hang with my frat brothers all the time. We hit up a cigar lounge, a nice happy hour, what have you. But again, what about those things that just center you for who you are, that doesn't have any intrinsic value to? You don't have to pay for, right? Mastering the 5 to 9. What you do from 5 to 9 builds your legacy. And here's the exact playbook, if you will, to survive this transition. Make sure you don't make this mistake of thinking that this is cold turkey, you guys. And then make sure that we're not pointing the finger at each other. If you have a job out there and it fits and whatnot, that's not everybody's reality. You know, you could be doing good one day and next. We know how life goes, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be one size fits all. So let's look at this playbook, right? So the first thing that I want to talk about is what I say, shrink the caves. In other words, quiet the noise. This is the first thing that we have to do. And again, we're talking about the same qualities we put into our jobs. How do we put that into our lives? Now, I'm using the analogy of your legacy, entrepreneurial work and things of that sort. But shouldn't your legacy also being a good father, being a good mother, being a good mate, being a good partner? So again, it doesn't necessarily have to be, I want us to think bigger than just money here. If it is money, or if it's something that, that can bring you more financial wealth, hey, I ain't turning down nothing but my collar, right? But there are some other things that you should not be able to put a price on that we can include in this conversation. So the first thing that we have to do in this playbook is shrink the cave. We have to quiet the noise. And sometimes that noise is a lot of old tribal knowledge that we've just been taught to sound good, and we're just doing it because the Joneses say do it and we have some fringe benefits, right? So we have to limit our emotional investment to our job requirements. I want you to really think about this. We have to limit our emotional investment to our job requirements. That's those people that we react to things at our job as if it's our own. Respectfully, we don't own that job. Respectfully, if you don't work with your loved one or your mate, them people don't come home with us. But this is for those people who, if some happens or the company makes some change, we act like they made a change at our house, right? Some don't go our way at the job. We bring it back to the house like that change will affect our household. If the manual says A, B, and C, do A, B, and C with excellence. Like I said, do it at 100%. If your job is A, B, and C, do A, B, and C excellent, 100%. I'm not telling you to be a bad employee. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, if your job requirement is this, and this, do it 100%. What I am telling you is to rethink and quit giving them D, E, and F for free. I'm going to say that again. A, B, and C, if that's what my job says, do it at 100%. Where we get lost in the sauce is when we expect that since we're given D, E, and F, that we're obligated to be thought of, to be rewarded for, or looked upon favorably. No, you gave D, E, and F up for free. But in reality, D, E, and F belongs to your legacy. See, remember I talked about knowing someone who took their job home, make a long story short. Young lady I should talk to a little while ago. That's why it was short-lived, quite frankly. She was excellent at giving A, B, and C. I'm talking about it was her calling, unequivocally. She gave A, B, and C at a high level. It actually inspired me. The danger and the ultimate demise, I shouldn't say demise, that sounds like a strong word, but the ending of us was short-lived because she could not recognize she was giving D, E, and F for free, as it helped her ego and made her feel that they'll value A, B, and C more. No, they won't. They'll value A, B, and C for A, B, and C. Now, anything that you give for free, the extra, of course we're going to take it. But that doesn't mean that we're going to give it back to you. So when she started getting D, E, and F instead of giving it to her legacy, guess who suffered? The legacy that involved her son, the legacy that involved the relationship she was trying to be in, her health, the D, E, and F, so to speak, that she was supposed to just give to herself to take a break and take her health issue that she had. Now I'm going to get up in anyway. I'm going to postpone that doctor's visit. Doctor said do this. Well, you know what? I'm going to put that off. My job says A, B, and C, but I have programmed myself that my value, my self-worth, and is a good thing that I also give them D, E, and F. And that's why a lot of people don't speak on their legacy. That's why a lot of people only speak on their legacy in the manner of which the things that their job allows them to do. So if you take that job, what happens to your legacy? So really think about that. That first step, we got to shrink the cage. We got to quiet the noise. Keep the main thing the main thing. Don't let a lot of this BS stuff out here that doesn't make us overgive ourselves, just like in a relationship, right? It's the same thing with that job. Yeah, do the job. You was hired to do A, B, and C. Do A, B, and C. Do it at a high level. Be great at it. Be one of the best people in the world to do it. But also know how to differentiate D, E, and F. Quit giving that away for free. Give that to your legacy. Number 2, check your after hours energy. Again, bringing it home with you. The cage wants to exhaust you so you don't have the strength to bend the bars. Sometimes we can't even peek out. We can't even muster the strength. And we've all been there, right? Pull up in the car. I will say some other thing, but we on this podcast. But my female counterpart like taking off certain garments. My male counterpart, we like to unbutton certain parts of our pants or take off our shirt and whatnot. And we are just so exhausted that we can't even do nothing but just sit there. Not only that we've given and overgiven at work within the 9 to 5, now somebody is starting to impede on that 5 to 9. So it becomes easy. It becomes justifiable. Forget my legacy. Forget what I want to do. Forget my calling. I just want to sit here, catch my breath, and be silent. I don't want to be bothered. So although I'm not giving that job direct time, I'm indirectly giving them that time. And pretty soon I got to go in the house, rush and do my thing, and I got to get up and do it all over tomorrow, right? So understand that cage that you sometimes feel and that you're outgrowing sometimes want to exhaust you for fear of you breaking out. So it'll press against you so that you don't have the strength to bend the bar to break out. So we have to quit treating what I call work emergencies like they're life or death. No, you're putting yourself at risk or a life or death, trying to be everything to everybody. You have to take those breaks to build you and yours. Like I said, whether it's a business, career, a hobby, or even if it's just your self care. That's what's really life or death. You can be the best thing to everybody at that job, work your way up. You can get every position that you have. I remember I had a college friend, may she rest in peace. I'll briefly share this with you because I think sometimes we think that it won't happen to us or this just doesn't make any sense, right? Because this is outside thinking. A good friend of mine had worked for a major bank and worked her way all the way up to literally, based on her education, they told her she had capped out. Like, we cannot give you any other raise. You would literally have to go into a different position or department. One day she came in and it was a new young lady that they hired. And they told her, hey, this is a new employee. You've been here for the longest or what have you. We just want you to train her. So she's just going to follow you, learn from you. If she have any questions, make sure you ask it. And of course, my friend was that person. Percent. I'm talking about made sacrifices. I'll just say that. Nothing was given to her. She earned that position. Percent. Once that young lady became proficient in doing her job, they let her go. And I wish I could share some of the sacrifices that she made and some of the things she had to go through afterwards. The point that I'm making is that you have to have real conversation with yourself or what is really life or death that involves you and yours versus treating these work emergencies as if they're life and death. If it's not in the contract, if it's not in the job description, leave the laptop closed at 5:01. Sometimes there are one-offs, right? We have to do what we have to do. But what I'm saying, you guys, we have to put ourselves back on the forefront. We have to understand that it's not our job's responsibility to protect and to maintain our personal mental wellness. And so there will be times, as I said again, when we feel ourselves outgrowing that cage because we know we've grown. We know that we have a calling. We have been able to identify, okay, I have a job, like my job, I can do my job. When we realize, hey, I got a career, like my career, and do my career. But I have this third thing. And not everybody will have this. Not everybody will appreciate this, right? But I think this is those out there will understand. So I want to have to give a disclaimer. Once you've identified whatever that calling is, your higher purpose, whatever analogy you want to use, you'll realize that there has to be some shifting. Let's talk about finance the exit methodically. Remember when we talked about earlier, when we talked about this lady worked at a tech company in the whole 9 yards. She loved the job, right? But she had to exit in such a methodic way just for her peace of mind. She just felt that she had done that for so long that there was no personal satisfaction. So again, when we use that term exit, doesn't always necessarily have to mean that you up and leaving your job or, hey, because I'm having issues at that job, I need to leave. But we do need to have some type of exit for our mindset to be shifted to where we can go and identify that peace of mind. Harvard Business Review found that entrepreneurs who transition gradually while maintaining a day job, are 33% less likely to fail than those who abruptly quit. I wanted to put that in there because I don't think we talk about entrepreneurship, and and I'll probably do a podcast, and I think we frown on it in spaces that I don't think we should. There is a proper way of doing everything. I always say use the term right idea, wrong process. So I want to normalize, especially in our community, in our Black community. We frown on. We'll stay in a bad situation even if our calling may be entrepreneurial, and it's not for everybody, trust me, I know. But why deny your calling if that's what it is and stay in an uncomfortable situation just because it's comfortable? Again, remember, you wouldn't stay in a bad relationship just because, hey, she have sex with me every night, or hey, he buys me. I hope you wouldn't, right? Well, it's the same thing still in an unhealthy relationship with a job. Desperation breeds bad decisions. And I think that's on the onset of, as I was talking about earlier, right? Most of us been there. Bills piled up. We lost a job for a reason, been laid off or what have you. And we get desperate. Hey, man, they're cutting things off. They're moving things out. And so I have to take what I have to take. Now, in that moment, do we have a chance And let's not say everyone has a chance. No, sometimes you have to do what you have to do. You have to do what you have to do till you can do better, right? But that desperation can put us in a bad decision in a cage that we don't necessarily fit, right? And so let's just keep that in mind. And so I want to kind of give you guys a little access to me. Most of you guys know me well. I want you guys to understand that I'm not just saying this stuff just to be saying it, right? When I realized my calling was to help people, there was a lot of stuff I had to learn. So there was a lot of investing that I had to do in myself for free. There's no one paying me to do this. And matter of fact, some of these things cost, right? You're talking about getting certified in life coaching. You're talking about something simple as doing a podcast. There's certain equipment. Shout out to Ken Boston. He had been doing his podcast for a minute, the 5 session. No, I'm just thinking you just get in front of camera, sit and talk. But when you get into the intricacies and you want to do things right and you want to do things great for the audience such as yourself, guess what? You have to go invest in yourself. So yeah, you have to get a new laptop here. You got to get a new lighting there. You got to get a new mic here. We have been taught that somehow we can justify away the responsibility of our calling, but we are okay. And again, nothing wrong with going out kicking and have a drink and things of that sort, but we can't make that more important than investing within ourselves, especially when we know that we have something inside us that we want to do. We have to quit shrinking ourselves and making everything and everybody else big. That's the point that I'm getting back. Even when I was investing myself in writing my book, man, it took a lot of sacrifices, right? There are plenty of times my frat brothers, my son and brother, hey James, where you at? I want to stay at the spot. I want to go hang out. I want to be at the Circle Lounge. But guess what, man? I gotta write this many words by tonight. No one's paying for me. Were paying me to do that. Not one book sold. But I gotta write this many pages tonight. I gotta hit the Microsoft Word up. That's when you have a calling. That's like I said, you'll do it because you enjoy it so much, you'll do it for free. But what did I have to trade off? I had to trade off some of them good times and hanging out, and I had to disappear there for a minute. I still have people come around, man, where was you? Well, guess what? The book don't fall out the sky. So I say all that to say, and I share that transparent truth with you, man. We can't be afraid to invest in ourselves. We can't shrink our calling and dump our whole selves in our job just because it's easily accessible or just because we get something quickly out of it. We get the paycheck, we get the direct deposit, right? We have to be willing to lend that same mindset to ourselves and keep our job in perspective. Sometimes we get mad and upset in our job and we try to change in our job. It's like, get that to your own legacy, right? So just keep that in mind that there has to be some type of method to unbolting your own door right now. You can keep beating at that door in that cage, and if that haven't been working, you're only hurting yourself. So what is your method? Again, even if it's something starting a business or something like that, or if it's just something, like I said, hey, I want to organize my music collection. I want to organize my closet, however big or small what it is. What is your mental approach to that? And if it brings you joy, you may find yourself not having the energy to do it a lot of time because you've exhausted yourself giving that extra energy over the A, B, and C analogy that we use. I'm giving D, E, and F, and I never get around to doing what I'm doing. So now comes the shedding process. We got the mindset, we got the knowledge, we looked at some myths. What does it look like? The shedding process. I have to warn you about the side effects of outgrowing your cage. When you start building your door, other people inside that cage is going to get uncomfortable. Understand, snakes have to shed their skin when they get too big for it, and it's not a comfortable process. The same goes for your social circle. Remember, I told you when I was ducking off, I had to go write the book and things of that sort. That makes people uncomfortable because you're not there to fulfill that role you played in life. And sometimes that can even be family. That family responsibility can be turned on and pressured on and make you lose out of what you're actually, or make you disseminate what your calling actually is. So please understand, like I said again, I gave an analogy. Snakes, they have to shed their skin when they get too big for it. It's not a comfortable process. So if you're not willing to embrace some of the uncomfortable is coming with that change, especially from your immediate circle, then you're in for a rude awakening if you really want to get out of that cage. You guys, when you stop complaining about the boss at the water cooler because You're too busy drafting your business plans. Your coworkers are going to notice it. When you stop going to the happy hour to vent and instead of go to the coffee shop to build, they'll call you obsessed. They'll say you changed. They'll say you acting differently. Know what you're doing? Again, in order to be better, I have to think better. And if I think better, I should know better in order so I could be better. So you have to be prepared for the scrutiny that comes with it. Keep in mind, everyone in the cage may be uncomfortable, but not everybody in the cage is willing to do what it takes to get out. And they will look at you and scrutinize you because we've all been in this cage so long. And if you're not careful, they'll make you doubt yourself. You'll never get out of this cage. And the only reason why they've probably been in that cage so long, because they never had the energy and the desire to get up and do something like you. So to them, that's foreign. That's crazy. They'll talk about you, something wrong with you. So while everybody else is in that cage uncomfortable, imagine trying to get comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. And here you go, get up and say, I'm going to do something about it. That's why a lot of people miss out on their calling. It has nothing to do with the grandeur of it or being an expert. A lot of people miss out on their calling because they're afraid of what other people might say to them. Jay, why you want a podcast? There's a million podcasts out there. You know what people say about podcast? You think you know everything and all that? God got something in me that I got to give out to people, even if that's one person. That's what I'm going to do. Period behind that. Why do you write like you do? Black folks don't really know it because I have a message inside of me and I want to leave a legacy behind to what God helped me with. And put a period behind that. Do not be afraid of the naysayers. You're going to have that opposition. Whether they say you change, whether they say you are obsessed, we're all just talking about shifting our mindset on a higher level of emotional intelligence. When it's all said and done, people will try to guilt trip you for outgrowing them. Let them. Never apologize for having an appetite that their tiny table just can't satisfy. Let them sit in the cage and critique your fight. Your job is not to try to convince them. Your job is to do the thing that God has put inside of you that you know has now become a calling, and your mere being complacent is uncomfortable. That's how you get out of the cage. When you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, when you can drain out the voices, when you can keep the main thing, not going to work and throwing yourself there expecting that your full self-worth, all your mental wellness is going to come from that, then your calling is going to be easy for you to wrap your mind around and put together your game plan to how do you do that at a higher level, just like you do everything else in your life. The reality of it is you're going to lose some friends in this season. Yes, I'll be very transparent. I hope that God brings those friendships back around, but if they were just really associates and friends disguised, then guess what? There's nothing I can do about that. The same way on my job, they tell you get up and go no matter what. They don't care about what your personal life is. I have to have that same commitment to my calling. So yeah, you're going to rub some people the wrong way. Now, I'm not saying just go out there and just, be a crappy person to people. Try to mend all friendships and all relationships. But if a person chooses to move on, then guess what? Again, you don't even let that leave your calling. Not when I have to go to work and then something can happen at home. And guess what? That job going to still want me to come in, right? You handle that after you leave work. So we have to start having a mind shift. You're going to lose some friends in this season. They don't have the calling. They don't understand it. It's too atypical to them. Matter of fact, they don't see you doing that new thing that you're doing. They see you at happy hour. They see you hanging out and whatnot. That's what they're comfortable with. The moment you try to do something that's out their purview, you done change. So understand that that's a part of the territory. You're going to outgrow some conversations. If you're serious about being an entrepreneur or trying to build anything, or you got a hobby, what have you, guess what? Pilots hang with pilots, lawyers hang with lawyers. You're not going to have the same conversation or I wouldn't say low level conversation, but just the casual conversation when you're just sitting around with your friends. You're going to be able to still have those, but you're going to outgrow that cage. You're going to want to have conversations about business, financial literacy. You're going to want to have conversation about things that are passionate you. I don't care if it is arts and craft. I don't care if it is about writing, poetry, whatever it is that's your calling that excites you. You're not going to be able to have those conversations everywhere. And you're not going to be able to find those conversations in the conversations around you. Be willing to outgrow that. You're going to have to mourn that, accept that, but keep building the door, because the whole goal is to get out of this cage. The people you're meant to build the empire with are waiting for you on the outside. Don't allow loyalty to make you lose out on your calling. No matter how bad that supervisor pisses you off at work, guess what? You're going to go back because you see something tangible that you're going to get. You're going to be thinking about your check. What do you have in your life that you want to aspire to do and or accomplish, notwithstanding your job, that you would give that same dedication to? That's something I want you to think about as we close this podcast. The same dedication we give that job, we don't like that job. Maybe it's something we don't like doing. Maybe it's someone that to get on our nerves. Maybe it's someone there that, man, when we see them, that heavy pain in our chest comes in. How do we transition our mindset to say, guess what? I shouldn't be that fully invested anyway. They only ask me to do A, B, and C. What am I giving them D, and E, and F for? And when they don't appreciate it, I'm mad. How do we transition those things? Because I'm outgrowing this cage, right? I don't belong here. God has given me more. He's increased me, not just in material things, but in where he's trying to take me. How do I give those things to myself and to the things that he actually calling me to do? We have to put back on the table, and I will say it again and again, our job, our career, but we also have to start validating our calling, ladies and gentlemen. We have more worth, and we should look at our self-worth to explore our worth beyond a regular 9 to 5. So listen to me closely. If you feel the walls are closing in today, I want you to just smile. Even though it feels uncomfortable in that cage, smile and rejoice, because it means that you've grown. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't let nobody minimize that, put you down, or the whole 9 yards. A seed has to crack its shell before it becomes a tree. There has to be a process to it. There's no seed you plant in the ground that tomorrow you're going to eat from. The crack feels like breaking, right? But it's actually the beginning of your reach toward the sun. Continue to push through. Shift those mindsets that you're giving these things. And like I said, this applies to a job, but this could apply to a meaningless relationship. All of those things that you're just giving away, that responsibility don't call for. In the words of my good sister Maxine Waters, reclaim your time. Yeah, reclaim your time, reevaluate what it is that you bring to this world that creates a genuine purpose to you, to where no dollar amount can satisfy it. No matter how big or small it is to people, what does it mean to you? And take that reclaimed time and reclaim energy and start working on yourself. Don't give up on your dream to satisfy the job. Shrink the job down to its proper size. It's a transaction, right? Even as a career, my job is to go here to give certain skill set that I've learned, went to school, learned by trade, or what have you. And the transaction which they give back is a check, a direct deposit, and expand your calling to its rightful place, your life's work. Your job is not your life. Your life work, your purpose should be your life work. Remember, the cage doesn't define the bird, the wings do. And your wings have been cramped for far too long. It's time to stop decorating your cage and start opening the door. Your cage is not where you're supposed to be. Don't be afraid to open up the door, spread your wings, and be the person who God is calling you to be. Thank you for sticking in here with me. If this episode woke something up in you, you owe it to yourself and your circle to share it. If you know someone who don't have a work-life balance, again, they give 110% to the job, and you be transparent with them that their life is a mess, or they're masking, or they're downplaying it, or they're giving anything less of a percentage to who they are. If you know someone who bails out on self-care because the job, got to pay the bills, share this information with them. Share this podcast with them. Send this link to that coworker you know who's dying inside of that cubicle. Even if it is a job, even if they outgrown the job and, hey, it pays well, I got to do what I got to do. Hey, put together yourself a method. Bottom line, you don't have to be stuck, right? That's what we want to get people to understand. Make sure you hit subscribe. Please leave a 5-star review. It helps a lot. Continue to support me with my endeavors. There is some things I do have coming up, man, as I end tonight. Follow me on all podcast platforms. It helps so much. YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. I think I hit them all. So whatever your app of choice, or if you have all of them, please go there and support your boy. Don't just like, subscribe. It's one click of other button. Hit the link in the bio. Let's make sure that we're supporting Jay's Corner. My goal is to get bigger and better, man, and bring you guys even more greater content in greater ways, getting some guests on here. And so definitely help your boy out. That's a humble plea. On Saturday, I will be attending. You can go check this flyer out on all my social media platforms. I have been invited by the Women of Pearls. I think that's CAF in partnership with Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the Tau Rho Omega chapter. They are having a phenomenal mental wellness forum on Saturday, May 2nd, 2026 at 10 a.m. It'll be in Louisville, Texas. It's called Mind Our Mics, Community, Courage, and Cadence. You guys, this is going to be an excellent opportunity where we're going to drill down and start talking about mental wellness, what it looks like. We're going to have some spoken word in there to kind of, help with the entertainment and thought-provoking mindsets. Your boys truly may drop a new piece, new-ish for my poets out there. But I'm looking forward to it, man. We're going to split up, let the men do their thing. We're going to let the females do their thing. Try to have some honest conversation. Then we're going to come back together. We have some phenomenal speakers. I will be help facilitating this event. And then we're going to bring it back together at the end, man, to where we're going to have a Q&A and hopefully just have some open dialogue, some beginning conversation. We're not going to try to heal the world there. But man, I encourage you, if you're not doing that on Saturday, or if you can find some time in your schedule to come out, be a part of that. It's a free event. They're not charging the door, but man, come and get some great information from some great professionals who will be giving their time to come out and support this conversation on mental health, mental wellness, and some of the stigmas that are around it. And how do we differentiate mental wellness from mental illness? So again, if you want that information, please hit me up on social media. The flyers is out there. You can go to all my social media hubs and get that information out there. So I'm looking forward to doing that. So that's what I'll be doing this Saturday. Now, with that being said, of course, I cannot get out here without telling you, grab your copy of Think Better to Be Better and start rewriting your own reality tonight, man. The book is written at self-paced. It's not a lot of clinical, man. It's written just like you and I, man. I've been fortunate to have a lot of great mentors, therapists, counselors to help me through personal things in my life. And I just put it in this book and said, hey, let me put it in cornbread's language to where an everyday person can get the same amount of help if they can't afford to step into that clinic. At least they can get a good overview to that. And so, again, grab that book there on Amazon.com. If you want a personally signed copy, hit your boy up. You guys, I am Coach Jay Hester. This is Jay's Corner. I'll see you on the top, man. Remember, man, take care of yourself. It's always better to be allies in this thing called life instead of adversaries. Thank you, guys, for being my allies. Go out there and try to make an adversary to come on over here, man, and be allies with us. Y'all take care of yourself.